In the world of high-frequency trading, human emotion is considered a liability. Fear and greed will bankrupt you. That's why Wall Street uses quants, engineers who write highly complex artificial intelligence algorithms to trade stocks in fractions of a microsecond. Machines don't panic. Machines don't get greedy. They just execute the math. I spent my entire career building infallible mathematical systems. I just didn't realize the most unstable, unpredictable variable in my life was the woman sleeping in my bed. My name is Julian. I'm 34 years old and I am a senior quantitative developer. 5 years ago, I married Elise. Elise was a wealth manager at a boutique financial firm. She loved the fast-paced, high-status world of finance. She loved the suits, the steakhouse dinners, and the networking. I preferred to stay in the background, writing the code that made the suits their money. For 4 years, I spent every night and weekend in my home office building my masterpiece. It was a proprietary predictive trading algorithm I called Project Midas. In over 10,000 hours of backtesting, it was generating a flawless 25% monthly return. It was completely market neutral, meaning it made money whether the stock market went up or down. It was a billion-dollar golden goose. I told Elise it was our ticket to complete financial freedom, but Elise didn't want to wait for me to launch it. She wanted to hand the golden goose to someone else.
The shift happened when Elise's firm was acquired by a massive, aggressive hedge fund. That's where she met Damien. Damien was the CEO of the fund. He was 42, wore $10,000 bespoke suits, flew on private jets, and spoke almost entirely in aggressive Wall Street buzzwords like alpha generation and capital deployment. He was a predator in a perfectly tailored disguise. Suddenly, Elise was working 14-hour days, claiming she was helping Damien restructure the firm's portfolio. The red flags started appearing on my dashboard. First, the profound disrespect. Elise started treating me like an IT guy. "Julian, you need to get out of the basement," she snapped at me one night. "Damien manages $500 million in liquid assets. He is an apex predator. You just sit in the dark typing on a keyboard. You need to be more aggressive." Second, the sudden interest in my server architecture. Elise, who usually couldn't care less about my code, suddenly wanted to know exactly how Project Midas worked. She asked me where the master files were stored, how the encryption worked, and if it was ready for a live market environment. Third, the firewall logs. My home server is protected by enterprise-grade security. One Tuesday afternoon, my phone sent me an automated alert. Someone had tried to SSH into my private development server from an unauthorized IP address located in the city's financial district. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in data. So I ran an audit on my wife.
Elise used a secure encrypted messaging app to talk to Damien, but she made a rookie operational security mistake. She stayed logged into the web version of the app on our shared living room iMac. I opened the browser and the chat history populated immediately. I didn't just find an affair. I found a premeditated, multi-million-dollar corporate espionage plot. Damien wrote, "My engineers reviewed the sample code you sent. It's brilliant. If we deploy Project Midas at the fund with $20 million in initial capital, we will crush the market. Have you secured the final source code yet?" Elise replied, "I'm pulling it off his local server tonight while he's asleep. I have his master password. Once I have the flash drive, I'm bringing it to your office. You launch the bot, I serve him the divorce papers, and I take my 20% equity stake in the fund. He's just a basement nerd, Damien. He doesn't have the money to sue a billion-dollar hedge fund for IP theft." Damien responded, "You're incredible, baby. The nerd is going to buy me my next yacht." I sat in my dark office, the hum of my servers filling the silence. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was going to steal 4 years of my absolute best work, hand it to her lover, and use my own genius to fund their new life while I was left with nothing. They thought I was just a basement nerd. They didn't understand the level of absolute destruction a quant engineer is capable of coding.
If someone is trying to steal your weapon, you don't fight them for it. You just remove the safety switch and hand it to them. I didn't confront her. If I did, Damien's corporate lawyers would bury me in injunctions, and they would just try to steal it another way. I needed them to steal the algorithm. I needed Damien to confidently plug it into his hedge fund's live trading floor. That night, before Elise came home, I went into the master folder for Project Midas. I created a cloned, final version of the source code. To an engineer reviewing the math, It looked absolutely flawless. It would even perform perfectly in a simulated backtesting environment. But I embedded a microscopic, deeply hidden logic bomb, a fatal exception parameter. The code was designed to verify the user's specific API exchange key. If the algorithm detected that it was connected to a live, real money stock exchange using any API key other than my personal key, it would silently trigger the payload. It wouldn't just stop working, it would invert its own risk management protocols. Instead of cutting losses at 1%, it would aggressively double down on losing trades. It would seek out the most volatile, toxic meme stocks on the market, buy them at the absolute highest price, and short sell them at the bottom. I left the rigged folder right on my desktop. That night, while I pretended to sleep, I listened to Elise sneak into my office, plug in a flash drive, and steal her own execution orders.
The next morning, I kissed Elise goodbye. "Have a great day at the firm, honey," I said. "I will, Julian. It's going to be a big day." She smiled, patting the purse where she had hidden the flash drive. I took the day off work. I drove straight to a highly specialized intellectual property and securities lawyer. I formally registered the true original source code for Project Midas with the U.S. Copyright Office, establishing an indisputable, time-stamped paper trail of my ownership. Then we went on the offensive. Using the screenshots of Elise and Damien's chat history, my lawyer filed an immediate confidential whistleblower tip with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and FINRA. We provided undeniable proof that the CEO of a major hedge fund was conspiring to commit corporate espionage and utilize stolen, unlicensed intellectual property to manage client funds. "Julian," my lawyer said, looking at the code, "when they run this, it's going to be a bloodbath. They are violating their fiduciary duty to their investors." "I know," I replied. "Let them bleed."
I wasn't in the room, but the SEC reports and the subsequent lawsuits documented the entire catastrophe second by second. Damien gathered his top executives and Elise in his glass-walled corner office. He proudly instructed his lead engineer to connect his new proprietary algorithm directly to the fund's live trading API, injecting it with $20 million in initial capital to prove its power. He hit execute. For the first 60 seconds, the algorithm verified the API key. It recognized it was not mine. The logic bomb triggered. At exactly 10:02 a.m., the algorithm initiated its first trade. It executed 15,000 highly leveraged, extremely risky short sell orders on a heavily manipulated tech stock. Damien's lead engineer frowned. "Sir, the risk parameters are disabled. It's opening massive negative positions." "Just let it run," Damien snapped. "It's an AI. It knows what it's doing." At 10:05 a.m., the stock price surged. The algorithm didn't cut the losses, it doubled them, then it quadrupled them. It began aggressively liquidating safe, blue-chip assets to fund a massive, suicidal margin call. The screens in the office turned entirely, violently red. "Shut it down," Damien screamed, finally realizing what was happening. "Kill the server." The engineer frantically typed, but the algorithm was executing trades in microseconds. By the time they physically pulled the power cord from the server rack at 10:14 a.m., it was too late. In exactly 12 minutes, my logic bomb had successfully emoliated $18.5 million of client capital. Elise dropped her glass of champagne. It shattered on the hardwood floor. At that exact moment, the elevators opened. 6 federal agents from the SEC, accompanied by the FBI, walked onto the trading floor with warrants for Damien's arrest for corporate espionage and massive fiduciary fraud.
The financial explosion leveled everything within a 5-mile radius. Damien's hedge fund was instantly frozen by the SEC. Because he had used stolen, unauthorized intellectual property that resulted in catastrophic client losses, his investors sued him for every penny he had. He was indicted for federal wire fraud, intellectual property theft, and reckless endangerment of client funds. His career as an apex predator was over. He was facing a decade in federal prison. To save himself, Damien immediately turned on Elise, claiming she was a rogue employee who provided him with a virus and that he was the victim. Elise was arrested as a co-conspirator for corporate espionage. She called me from the federal holding facility completely hysterical. Julian, you have to help me. The algorithm malfunctioned. They lost $20 million and the FBI is here. Tell them you wrote it. Tell them it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake, Elise," I said calmly. "I wrote the code perfectly. You just used the wrong API key. I read your messages. Enjoy the yacht." I hung up and blocked her number.
Because she was facing federal prison for stealing a marital asset, she had absolutely zero leverage in our divorce. I kept the house, my investments, and 100% of my intellectual property. She walked away with massive legal bills and a felony indictment.
It's been 2 years since that morning. Once the federal investigation cleared me of any wrongdoing, proving the code was stolen and improperly used without my authorization, I licensed the real, functioning version of Project Midas to a legitimate, top-tier quantitative trading firm in New York. I now manage my own division, making more money in a week than Damien ever did in a year. Last I heard, Elise took a plea deal to avoid prison. She lost her wealth management license and is currently working in the customer service department of a retail bank, answering phones for angry customers. Damien is still fighting his lawsuits, completely bankrupt, living in a cheap rental apartment. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's this. Never underestimate the person who builds the system you rely on. If your partner thinks they can steal your hard work, belittle your intelligence, and use your genius to fund their betrayal, don't argue with them. Let them steal the blueprints. Just make sure you change the variables. Sit back, let them hit execute, and watch the math do exactly what it was programmed to do. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the most satisfying time you've ever watched someone's arrogance destroy them? Stay smart and always encrypt your files.